Welcome into the No Limit Sports Podcast, and usually it's the Sports Plug 757 guys here joining me, but I actually got sick at the initial point of recording. They could not come in at a later date, so sports intern extraordinaire Brett Holmes, Virginia Tech mastermind, is here with us today.
I wouldn't go that far, man.
Brett, thanks a lot for joining us and sitting in. Got a lot to talk about. You're a big football guy, right? First off, tell the people about Brett Holmes a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm a senior over at Virginia Tech in their sports media and analytics program. Shout out Bill Roth and pretty much all of the amazing people that I have been able to interact with over there. But all the roads that have gone down have led me here, and especially with all of the guys going in and out of the 757, some of the guys going from the 757 to the 540 up there in Virginia Tech. It's great. It's natural for me to just sit here and talk about some great talent and coming back home and putting a spotlight on some of these guys that definitely deserve it.
Yeah, no doubt at all. And Brett's already did not take Brett long to become a valuable member of our News 3 sports team. And we're going to start by talking out some of the big news from this week, and the first one I think would be last Friday, Travis Johnson making it official. A lot of us expected it, I think. Many people kind of predicted that, but going to Michigan, go blue. He's going to suit up and be a wide receiver, catch passes from Bryce Underwood, one of the top recruits in the country. Great choice for Travis, I think, and I think a lot of people would agree.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at the Big Ten. This is the wide receivers conference. Recently, what you're talking about, Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, you got guys like Ryan Williams out in the SEC. LSU has become pretty much a powerhouse for wide receivers. But right now, the DBs are in the Big Ten. The wide receivers are in the Big Ten. And over there at Michigan, there are not a lot of guys out there that I can say are ahead of Travis Johnson as soon as this year. This is a big body receiver. This is a guy that can go out there, get jump balls done, but he's also someone that works really, really well in the open field. We see a lot of that not only showcased at the high school level because they need to get the ball in their hands, but this is a guy that is a really, really big body receiver who can run block. And he is kind of, I would say, acclimated with that, with Oscar Smith, because at the high school level, this is a run game. You are not out here air raiding it like you would be in college. In Michigan, you are going to a run-heavy system. So I think what we're going to be seeing over there is kind of a little bit of ease into the game. But what I love about his game is that he's a guy, you just throw it down there, and he gets the ball. And that's something that a lot of people up there with the big house, he's definitely going to have that roaring soon.
Travis definitely elevated his game during his junior season. I mean, I'm sure you saw some of the highlights that we had from this past season when Oscar Smith won states. There was one in the state semifinals against Colonial Forge where Travis is falling backwards and he still keeps that concentration, makes the catch with like one hand that he's falling to the ground.
Insane,
it's pretty, and his breakaway ability too. His touchdown catch in the state championship game against James Madison. You know, makes that catch, then just outruns everybody using his blockers well. He sees the field very well, and I thought it was really cool, Brett, when we talked to him earlier in the week, where he said, hey, right now, it's a weight off his shoulders. He can focus more on trying to repeat now. His guys are going to stay humble, but he sees them repeating. So I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to go ahead and shout out a big tech guy, but he doesn't have the size, but seeing him in the open field reminds me a lot of a green run guy, Keelan Adams, man. I can't wait to see what he ends up doing, and especially I can't wait to see what his teammate, Zaevion Cleveland, he just committed to Tech just a couple of weeks ago, not too long after Cam Johnson, soon after that, Thomas Wilder. This pipeline, it really is becoming something up there.
Yeah, it's been 7 in the last 3 years. Of course, we saw Jayden Anderson enter the transfer portal, so, you know, it'll be 6 in 3 years when all is said and done right now, and counting as of now, don't get me wrong. But quite the pipeline there. And then, while we're talking about Travis Johnson, another guy who suits up for Oscar Smith there, one of the Tigers, Jayden Covil. He is not following his brother down to Hokie land, rather going to UVA, and he will suit up for the Cavaliers. And I think it's going to be, a pretty good fit for him. He said that just the coaches made that environment and the energy just really appeal to him, and that's where he wanted to be.
Yeah, he also said that there were going to be some punches thrown at Thanksgiving
Yes,
next
he did.
year.
Yes, he did.
So it's very interesting to see what his fit there in Virginia is. He's a very small corner, and he's a guy that moves very well. He's somebody that is going to move in and out of the nickel. I think he's somebody that if he does put on that size, I don't know if he'll ever get the boundary, but he might be dropped back into coverage as a safety. I don't think he could move in and out of the box all that well. So I think nickel is a really, really good landing spot for him. And we see nickel become one of the more dominant positions in the NFL. We see guys like Brian Branch, Malachi Starks, a phenomenal safety who moved in and out from strong safety, free safety, moved into the nickel. Those guys that can develop that fluidity between coverage, zone, man, and then also putting a little muscle on him, having him be that aggressive tackler, that enforcer on the gridiron, pretty much wherever you can move him on the defensive side of the ball. He could end up being a very, very valuable weapon for the Cavaliers. I just think he needs to put some weight on.
Well, okay, and that goes to my point. I was going to say, I never like to look at high school and say, this is some template for how they'll be, because once they get in and once they have a college strength and conditioning coach sink their claws into them, some of these guys are going to end up doing things that they never imagined. And that's what I think is cool about seeing our guys who start at the high school level. Some of them may not have even tapped into this potential yet. And that's what I think is cool about, I only think stars go so far. Once you get to college, you have to be able to handle the college game, the step up in the competition, of course, but also everything that requires. And, I'm excited to see how these guys do once they get that college conditioning, like I said, that conditioning coach, and that regimen, and just kind of see how they change as athletes for the better and add to their toolbox.
Yeah, the Cavaliers had a pretty good recruiting week this past week.
Yep.
But let's not kid ourselves. This is still a 5-7 team that has a long way to go. And I think building a very good in-state, we see this a lot with their rival, Virginia Tech, building a really good in-state class sometimes goes a long way, not only with building the talent of your team, but entrusting your kids that they can be the culture, not only of today, but of the future. And I think getting guys like Covil into the hold, it's a really good way of doing that.
Joins Anthony Britton from Lake Taylor and CJ Spence of Kempsville up in Charlottesville. So starting to stack some 757 guys up there. Obviously, we talked about Green Run. Jamari Deloach from Oscar Smith is also at Tech, just to name a few. Gerard Johnson from Cox. So they're a little bit further ahead of the game of owning our area at least, than UVA. But, Tony Elliott definitely has not turned a blind eye on the 757. So going to be cool to see how all this stacks up. We got plenty more to talk about here on the No Limit Sports Podcast. We're coming back right after this. Back now on the No Limit Sports Podcast, and Brett, we were just talking about some college football. We're going to shift to baseball for just a minute, just as a kind of a starting point for our next conversation. Nationals firing Davey Martinez as manager, firing Mike Rizzo, their general manager. A complete reset. Two guys who led them to a World Series championship back in 2019. Nats, though, ever since then, gave away, sold some big weapons, traded, either traded, let go, released, free agents, whatever the case may be, and then never really have been able to catch traction. I think it's still in a building process. So leads us to our discussion point of the day, Brett, is if you were told, let's say you found a lamp, genie pops out, bam, Brett, your team will win a championship, be it Super Bowl, NBA championship, Stanley Cup, MLB, whatever the case may be. They're going to win the title, but then they're going to absolutely stink for the next decade. Would you sign up for it?
I would say no, because I think it can be done without doing that. And I'll look at the OKC Thunder, and I'll tie this in with my team. I'll look at the Wizards and what they're building. It's all about building for now, but not sacrificing your future. And it's the complete opposite of what you're bringing up. We've seen teams be able to do this and it not affect them at all. Look at the Rams. The Rams came in, they got Matthew Stafford, they brought in Von Miller, they brought in Odell, they brought in all of these guys that are on big money contracts, but they were on expiring deals. You can go all in on a couple of 1 or 2 year deals, but they're high value guys at that moment. But then make sure you give yourself a little bit of room to cut that contingency. And if I am an owner, I am not doing anything more than that. I am not going out and doing what the Celtics have done. They signed a lot of their players to big-name contracts, and they got that championship. They got one of many. I'm sure they are spoiled. But now that second apron came in, and it really, really hurt them. I have not seen a bigger kind of vendetta against a team like the Celtics, and it seems like the second apron has. A lot of people are saying C.J. McCollum ruined the NBA with the Players Association bringing it in, but there are going to be more championship opportunities in the future, and while the end goal, especially with me being a Cowboys fan, the end goal is so hard and it is ever evasive, I don't think I can sacrifice. I'm not trading I'm not trading Micah Parsons for T.J. Watt. I'm not trading. A young Dak Prescott. I wouldn't have traded him for a Ben Roethlisberger, a guy that at the time that was still out there and competing at a high level. What is that going to look like in 10 years? And I don't love championship droughts. I like going somewhere, taking a couple of years off and going back. It's what the Rams have done. It's what so many other teams in the past have done. Those are the slow building dynasties that kind of get their way into the mainstream without you even really realizing it.
Right. So you're saying basically that you're saying the answer to the question is no. You're saying you would rather, even if you didn't win a championship, you would rather be in the hunt or competing every single year with maybe, though, like you said, those 1 or 2 year drop-offs of the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, because, look, the Nets, they had a couple of guys lose their jobs, and they were on that roster that won a championship. I remember the championship. It's not like it was decades ago, but
6 years.
Yeah, almost a decade.
Yep,
it's crazy, but
closer to a decade than not. Right,
yeah,
exactly.
But they've got all of these big name prospects coming in and out,
100%.
and they've got a really exciting future. You look over to what's happening over at Capital One with the Wizards, and that's what happens when you go all in and it doesn't work. John Wall, Bradley Beal, Otto Porter Jr. was the core. Oh God, what country is Marcin Gortat from? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But the Hammer, that's what I remember him from. The Hammer, the Gortat screen, one of the best things I've ever seen. That 2017 playoff run, I thought was the start of something, ended up being the end. Because we went all in on that one squad, and it didn't even come out with a championship. And now you've got teams out here that are getting a championship, but is one good year worth sacrificing for 10? I kind of want to know, what's your stance on that?
Yeah, so one, you mentioned the Cowboys, and they haven't won the Super Bowl since 1996. So obviously, it might be one of those things where it's like, hey, let's see it again. It's been a long drought. But as a Seattle Mariners baseball fan, the only active franchise to never make a World Series, I think I would be on the other end and say yes. I think once you win that title, I want to know what it feels like to experience a title. And if I picked up that magic lamp and that genie popped out and said, Mark, Mariners are going to win the World Series in 2025 or 2026, but then they're not going to be good again until 2035 or 2036, I think I'd say, sign me up, go for it. Go for it. I'm not saying to be right. I'm not saying, they're whatever the case may be. I'm just saying, me personally, I think that I want to feel that, because the Mariners are my team above every other team that I cheer for. That's my squad, and I want to cheer in October for them so badly, and I want to see them hoist that Commissioner's Trophy. So yeah, that's that. I would go yes. I would go yes.
I think
that's what it's all about, is winning championships.
I think for me, what makes it so hard is that I like seeing competition, and I like seeing young. I'm a big draft guy, and I love seeing teams develop the right way. One of the most exciting and satisfying championships in recent memory for me was Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Milwaukee, they did it the right way.
They
brought in some outside talent. They brought in Drew Holiday. They brought in Brook Lopez. But the two main guys, Chris Middleton, a guy that they brought in and took a chance on when he was I believe either a late second round pick or an undrafted guy, and then Giannis Antetokounmpo. That was a guy that you brought in as a project, and he paid off.
Then some.
Yeah, and he is the prototypical project, kind of similar to what we see with Josh Allen. A lot of people look at, okay, these overseas guys are insane and crazy athletes, and you see guys come in and out of the league that don't quite make it. And I think when you see those project guys make it, you see what that commitment does. That is not a 1-year commitment. That is a 10-year commitment. Going out and getting these championships, in my opinion, a satisfying, a good and quality championship is not a 1-year commitment.
Right. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you.
I think this is a stepping stone, and obviously it's very hard for me to say that with someone that has not seen my team outside of the Georgia Bulldogs, without seeing them, hoist up back-to-back national champions.
Yeah.
I would probably be a lot more desperate right now.
Sure.
But I think I wouldn't go out and sell a bunch of projects or sell prospects to go out and get a guy. But then on the Nats, you sold a guy that is a superstar, and you got a lot of prospects, and it built a satisfying future, but it still didn't get the job done at the end of the day.
My goodness, imagine if Harper, Soto, and Turner were still all there. If you would have hung on to Max, I'll give it his injury history. I mean, what could happen? So, hey, we're going to keep this going right on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Back now here, No Limit Sports Podcast. We're talking, would you sign up for your team winning a title if it meant that they would be in the doghouse, if they would stink for the next 10 years? Brett says no. I said yes in a certain case. But I want to go back to a team you mentioned during the discussion. That was the LA Rams. And when the Stafford and Goff deal was made, a lot of people said, oh, Lions won the trade. I don't agree with that because the Rams won the Super Bowl. So I think, like maybe the Lions have been a little bit more consistent. You could argue maybe. I don't even know about that. But I remember, and sports is so reactive. Goff was having a really good game on a Monday night, I think, and everybody was saying how, the Lions won the trade, but it was after the Rams had won the Super Bowl with Stafford. So, they won the Super Bowl, so I think they won the trade because they were trading to win the Super Bowl, and they did.
Yeah.
Where do you come in on that?
I think with me, and that's why I brought up the Rams, because they are such a rare case. In that trade specifically, all the Rams got was Stafford, but then they ended up getting a championship. And I understand where people say the Lions won the trade. You got Jared Goff, who ended up being a good quarterback. I still believe is a good quarterback.
I agree, and it works better in that system and everything like that.
I just don't think he's elite. I don't think he is ever going to be – he could be an all-pro guy, but he could be like a Tony Romo all-pro guy. That just doesn't get the job done. And he's put together some really good campaigns, and he's made it to the Super Bowl before, but he doesn't get the job done. And then you look at the rest of the first-round picks. Ifeatu Melifonwu was a third-rounder, but the first-rounders, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta going later in the third or second round. I can't remember which one. But these are all guys that they wouldn't be in this contention without.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, when you're looking at this trade specifically, the Lions have not got a Super Bowl out of it.
Right.
And if the Rams were sitting here and scratching their head being like, okay, how in the world do we get out of Matthew Stafford? They're not thinking about that. They're thinking, okay, how do we keep Stafford around?
Yep.
Because Stafford could retire. He's got 50,000 yards. He's a Hall of Famer.
He's
a first ballot Hall of Famer. And that championship put him in that position. But the Rams, the NFL is a business at the end of the day. The
Absolutely.
Rams won another championship. They want more seats filled. And Stafford was the guy that brought them a lot of that. They brought them a lot of that success. So I think with the Rams able to build a young core around Stafford, defensively especially, but with the guys that obviously hammering on Puka Nacua is something you can't always do, but with them building that strong core around, I think they continue to go in towards that argument of, hey, you can win a championship and not buy out. It's just how you respond.
Well, and I hate to even say win the trade, too, because even though those are the words I use, because, both teams want to win in their own respective ways at the end of the day. What works best for us? You might even argue the closest the Lions have gotten would have been this past season when they were the number one seed in the NFC, and I think a lot of people thought the road went through Detroit, then they hit that red-hot Commanders team and losing that high-scoring affair, in the divisional round. So I think, they lost that game, but I still think they're pretty close to where they want to be. I'm just saying in that trade, the Rams have already gotten there. Now they're on that second kind of build back up, and they were a playoff team this year, so they weren't bad. I think both teams probably are seeing some dividends out of that.
I think the main thing with the Lions that scares me so much is they got a lot of guys that they need to pay. And the guys that they already have on payroll are not cheap.
Yep.
They got Penei Sewell. They've got Jared Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have to be re-signed. Luckily, you've got a two-headed monster that isn't that expensive right now. Aiden Hutchinson is going to get another deal soon, and he's coming off of injury. So they've got all of these young stars. Brian Branch is probably going to be one of the highest-paid DBs when he gets in there. It's so hard for me to look at something like that and not be a little bit worried. I am worried because you've got 2 years of a young core, and what I see happening with the Lions is the same thing that has happened with Cincinnati. Cincinnati is still competitive. Cincinnati is still in talks, but they're not contenders.
Right.
They're not contenders right now. And I think they got about the same payroll as Cincinnati is going to have. But Cincinnati's a little younger, and they're still dealing with these issues. Offensively, some of the big pieces on this team, they're getting older. Jared Goff is your franchise guy. That is the number one guy that you look at, and he is not getting any younger. So that is one of the main unique cases that I can look at and say, hey, I don't think there's any winners. I don't think there's any losers because people are still being competitive. But at the end of the day, I cannot look at the future of the Rams and say, nah, I'd rather take the Lions. I
Right.
can't. I think they're about 50-50, and as of right now, with how good that LA defense was last year, I would rather be in Los Angeles dealing with that than dealing with the headache of, okay, we got to pay all these guys. And by the way, you just lost your all-star coaching staff. We don't even know what that team's going to be next year.
Yep, 100%. We got about 30 seconds left, or maybe a little bit more. But also, I think, one of the best teams right now to be a part of is Washington. I think there's a lot of excitement surrounding the Commanders. I think we're going to be able to go up there and see them in training camp here in a couple weeks, Brett.
We are.
And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to kind of see how they come together in year two, trying to prove that, hey, this wasn't a flash in the pan. We are here to stay. And I think in that division, it's going to be difficult with the Eagles there, and hopefully, maybe the Cowboys, Giants, but I think it's going to be fun to see how they follow that up.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what this new look Commanders is going to end up being. And, the bounce back isn't going to be easy. The NFC East is going to be hard, and I don't like making that many promises, but there's teams that are healthy now.
Yep.
The Cowboys are healthy now, and we weren't last year. And once all those cylinders are firing at the same time, it's a tough team to beat.
Yep.
And then they've also got Philly, who lost nobody. Mm-hmm. I mean, they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, boo-hoo. But they also just had a phenomenal draft. And the Giants had a phenomenal draft, too. So the Giants are one of those teams that everyone's looking at future-wise and saying, okay, even though Brian Daboll might be on the hot seat,
right,
future there is really bright.
They're adding some pieces, yeah.
And the Commanders, they went with a little bit more veteran approach this offseason. So we'll see what that ends up being. I think there's going to be a bit of a decline just because there's always a slump when it comes to performances like that. We see it with every team out there, but you never know. But defending Super Bowl champions, and you also got bested by them pretty substantially in the NFC Championship. They got a lot to prove early on.
Yep, we'll definitely see what happens. It's going to be a fun season. We're going to be joined back by the Sports Plug 757 guys here next week. For Brett Holmes, I'm Mark Davis. See you next time on No Limit Sports.